Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year again. So, this is the first external talk that we're hosting for Tibetan Buddhist Center by Mrs. Subhana. She is recommended by our Geshe-la Dorje Damdul to host here. So, this is the first time, so we don't know how the outcome will be, but there's always a first time for us to reach out for interfaith and secular talk. So, thank you for everybody who are here today. So it's really our honor, and we will be hosting more of this kind of talk in future. So please feel free to share this future talks with all your friends, and we're also looking forward to invite Mrs. Subhana back to Singapore in future again. So and I'll just now hand over to Mrs. Subhana. Please.
Thank you for your warm welcome. And I'm very, very grateful and very blessed to be here today. And I'm very happy to see all of you, and I wish you a very happy new year once again. And where do I talk from, here or there? Where should I? So I would rather, yes. My first obeisance is to God Almighty, who has inspired me to take up this task. My second obeisance is to the Mahatma, the great soul, who inspires us all from inside out, whose faith and endeavor can be a role model for all of us at all times and in all ages. And my third obeisance is to the Lokatma, to all of you, the enlightened souls whose eyes give me strength. I'm also very grateful to His Holiness the Dalai Lama for giving me the space here to speak, to Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul, who recommended to TBC that I should come and talk here on secular education and ethics, one of the things that His Holiness is talking about. And I am here today to talk about Mahatma Gandhi, who inspires His Holiness as well. So before I start the lecture, I would like to share a short film with you about Mahatma Gandhi.
Who too had lived and died to liberate his fellow beings from injustice and exploitation. This was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, a frail man who galvanized millions and, unleashing the miraculous force of non-violence, brought the mightiest empire the world has known to its knees. More than 1 billion Indians revere him as the father of their nation. The world acknowledges him as an apostle of peace. Gandhi dreamt of wiping every tear from every eye and strove to reach out to the last, faceless, suffering man. As a young student in England, Gandhi was drawn to the great religious works. The Bible, the Holy Quran, and the Gita inspired him equally. As a youth, Mohandas encountered great minds of the West, Thoreau, Emerson, and Count Tolstoy. He carried on a stimulating correspondence with the Russian savant. Gandhi was a struggling lawyer in South Africa when, after experiencing personal humiliation and racist violence, he took the vow to fight against oppression with all his might. What made Gandhi unique was his commitment to non-violence. Although he led many a historic political battle, he was essentially a religious man. The God he worshipped was truth, and serving humanity was his religion. For him, the moral and the ethical were supreme. He found a kindred soul in Nobel laureate poet Rabindranath Tagore. The poet shared with him common concerns about India's independence and the future of mankind. Later, he struck a friendship with the visionary writer Romain Rolland. During his sojourn in Europe in the 1930s, Gandhi spent hours with him discussing the crisis of civilization that loomed large. He also had stimulating meetings with other leading minds of his time. Those were turbulent times. The world, still recovering from the devastation of war, was threatened by brute forces of tyranny. The atom bomb cast a horrible shadow of terrible annihilation. The partition of India that followed in the wake of independence resulted in unprecedented carnage and rendered millions refugees. All that Gandhi had worked for seemed to be lying in ruins. Gandhi refused to despair and give up. He became even stronger in his resolve to fight the forces of darkness. He walked alone on perilous paths, heedless of personal safety, where few dared to follow in his footsteps. More than 6 decades have passed since Gandhi breathed his last, but his presence is still palpable. He lives in the hearts of all those who have taken up cudgels against oppression, exploitation, and injustice.
A man like Mahatma Gandhi, he started his political career in South Africa. And that, of course, has established these historical and emotional ties between our struggle and that of India.
Gandhi once said, "My life is my message." The message remains relevant. Exploitation of man by man has not ceased. Wars and violence continue to scar innocent victims. To douse raging fires and to find our way through toxic smoke, we need Gandhi as our guide. His legacy is immortal. There will never be a dearth of people who will dream similar dreams. The light Gandhi showed will continue to shine and guide humanity for generations.
In my opinion, Mahatma Gandhi's life is an epic of faith and endeavor. The source of his strength was in his faith in God. The greater the faith, and the stronger was the endeavor. His quest throughout his life was for truth, and he attained it through ahimsa or non-violence throughout his life till the last breath. In this quest for truth, he came to believe in 2 things. He said, if God is omnipresent, then truth is omnipresent too. That is, in each one of us, there is an element of goodness present. There is some truth present. His endeavor was to identify that truth, nurture it, and give a chance for it to flower for the benefit of service of humanity. The other thing that he believed in was that in spite of all the upheavals in the history of humanity, humankind will always move in an auspicious direction, because truth, that is God, is only interested in the welfare of its creation. Gandhiji used to, as the film also said, he was a deeply religious man. Every morning and evening, he started his day with prayers. And these prayers were from all religions, Sarva Dharma Prarthana. He said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth. And therefore, we must have an attitude of friendship towards the practitioners of various religions, and must have reverence towards the practitioner, and we must also study the essence of all the religions. I would like to share excerpts from all the religious prayers if you want to hear. I would like to play that audio if you have the time. I believe I have to close at a certain time. And how much time do I have? Faith? I do have the time, and if all of you are willing to listen to me and stay with me, I will then, with your permission, play the Sarva Dharma Prarthana or all religious prayers for you. Please join me in the prayer.
ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथाः मा गृधः कस्यचित् धनम्। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। कुल हुवल्लाहु अहद अल्लाहुस समद लम यलिद वलम यूलद लम यकुल लहु कुफुवन अहद।
Leave
Mahatma Gandhi was an ordinary person like you and me. But he transformed himself along the way and rose to such great heights. Our focus today is to understand how he did that. If he could do that, even we can do it. Because that same goodness, that same inner power is there in all of us to do good for others, to rise above our selfish needs, and to serve humanity with compassion. Gandhi didn't teach anything new, it was all there. He was inspired by the great people who were before him. Mahatma Buddha, Mahavir, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, and the great sages, Socrates, Jesus Christ, the great sages of our world. Their examples were in front of him, and the same examples are in front of us too. He learned from them. He had said that I have nothing new to teach to the world. All these things are as old as mountains. So there's nothing new that I'm teaching. It's all there. And he also learned from the sages, but at the same time, he looked inwards to find the light that is within us. Lord Buddha also had said, Atma Deepo Bhava. Just look inwards and find that light of enlightenment. So Gandhi had this light of enlightenment and the example of the great people in front of him. Now the effort was his own. He called himself a practical idealist because whatever he heard, read or liked, Gandhi immediately started practicing that. Therefore, whatever you learn from today's interaction, if you like anything out of that, try and implement it on yourself. Because ultimately, everything has to be experimented on oneself to find out how true it is. We hear so many things, but unless we do it ourselves, we experiment it on ourselves, we won't know how real true it is. Talking about compassion, I would like to say that from childhood, he was a very, very compassionate person, child. At the age of 8, when his father was not well, he decided to serve his father. So every night he used to be with his father, serving him, because father was on the sick bed. As he grew, any opportunity he got to help others, he was always there to help ease the suffering of people. So I want to tell you a story from his days in South Africa, where he spent 21 years of his life. In Phoenix settlement, where Gandhi lived, in front of his ashram. Oh, okay. So before that, Raviji says that there is something about His Holiness had said about Gandhiji that I need to show before I tell you the story. So an audio visual of what His Holiness says. I'm sorry, the audio, we did not know how to raise the sound of this, so the audio was very low. I hope you were able to hear His Holiness talking about Mahatma Gandhi. So talking about compassion, about his days in South Africa when he was a young person like you all, and he was living in Phoenix settlement where it was a community life, very simple living like all of you have here. The house must have been like this, and in front of the house there was this very big tree. So Gandhiji was sitting and studying in front in the veranda, and he could see someone peeping from the tree. Hiding behind the tree trunk and looking at him. And whenever Gandhi used to look at that man, he used to hide again. So Gandhi went to him, he said, "What is it? Who are you? What do you want?" So he was very scared, and he said, "Well, I have come here for seeking for your help because I am suffering from leprosy." And this is in 1906 or so. And that time it was very difficult for people with leprosy to be accepted in the society. So Gandhi took him inside, washed his wounds with hot water and potassium permanganate, dressed him, and he really wanted him to be here in the house, in his house. But he wasn't sure how others would accept it. So he asked his friend to rent a house and make an arrangement for people like that. And later on, asked for donations and collected money to build a hospital for leprosy patients. So in this you can see that for Gandhi, compassion extended to the society, to helping everybody in the society. And he was one person, if he had taken up a cause, he would follow it up to the extent it just spread in the society. And because of Gandhi, many people started serving leprosy patients in India. And earlier it was only the missionaries who were doing it, but later on many people did. And even in the settlement later on, when in India he made the settlement in Sevagram. This is some place in one of his last settlements or ashrams in Maharashtra, in the state of Maharashtra, near Nagpur. And there also, when a leprosy patient came to him, he invited him inside. The person said that he had two desires. One was to stay with him in the ashram, and the second was to die in the ashram. Gandhi said, "I will not allow you to die. I will serve you myself and I'll treat you. You can easily stay here," he said. So he treated this elderly gentleman with every day, morning and evening. He used to massage this patient for 45 minutes. And Gandhi also had another habit of visiting all the people who were sick in the settlement and meeting him. And this, of course, continued till he was 79 years old. So I was talking about from a very childhood when Gandhi started serving his father up to the last stage when in 79, in 1947, there were riots in West Bengal, so-called West Bengal then, now it's called Bangladesh. And there was this riots between two communities, Hindus and Muslims. So Gandhi went there. When India got independence, Gandhi was not in Delhi. He was in he was in a place called Noakhali with people who were really, really very much caught in the violence of hatred. So Gandhi was with them. And I would like to tell you that at that time we were under the rule of the British. And in 1947, the Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, said that there are so many soldiers attending to people and trying to bring peace. But here there was one man army who brought in absolute peace. And he was all praise for Gandhi. And at that time, my father's friend, and his name is Horace Alexander. He was also with Gandhiji. He told me that something which he learned from Gandhi was his punctuality and courtesy. People used to call him, say that he was a slave to the watch. But what Horace Alexander learned, that Gandhi packed into those 24 hours so much work that he used to use every minute to serve others, to be compassionate to others. And he never gave the impression of being hurried or impatient. That is the compassionate nature of Gandhi. So I wanted to play one real footage of Gandhi for you. If you permit me, I will play that. When the in India we were celebrating independence, this one young person at 79 was walking alone, fearlessly, to give so much love and care to people. I would like to share that with you.
Making his way through the inaccessible delta of the Ganga. If they answer not thy call, walk alone. If they do not hold up the light when the night is troubled with storm, with the thunder flame of pain, ignite thine own heart and let it burn alone.
একলা বলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও অভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাবার ফলে কেউ ফিরে না যায় যদি গহন পথে যাবার ফলে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাঁটা রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বদলে আধার রাতে দুয়া দেয় করে যদি ঝড় বদলে আধার রাতে দুয়া দেয় করে তবে বজ্রালনে আপন বুকের পাথর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা জলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে.
This song was written by Rabindranath Tagore. I'm sure you have heard about him. He's also one of the greatest sons of our country. And it says, walk alone. If nobody comes along with you when you want to serve others, when you want to alleviate the suffering of others, just do it alone. Go ahead, walk alone. And that's what we see in Gandhi, because he was a man of action. For him, ahimsa was not a passive force. It was a force full of potentials. And it was through ahimsa, which is pure love and compassion. He believed that we could melt the hearts of the people, adversaries. The hardest of hearts can also be melted by ahimsa. That kind of force, that kind of power non-violence has. Another friend of my father's, Mr. Brockway, He was also, when he met Gandhi in 1927 in India, he had a very severe accident in Madras. And he was in the hospital for 3 months. Every day people used to come and visit him. And at that time it so happened that Gandhi was also in Madras for 4 days in 1927. Gandhi's habit was to meet everybody who was sick and unwell every day, morning and evening. So he used to walk there in his very simple dress of loin cloth and shawl. On one day when Gandhi came, it was his day of silence. So Mr. Brockway wrote to him about something, about how he was suffering. Gandhi merely held his hands. And then Mr. Brockway wrote in his memoirs that night my pain eased away, and for the first time I slept without taking any medicines. That kind of effect Gandhi had on people. And another, the means of internal strength that Gandhi had, how he cultivated that inner power. He had his own means of doing that. One of the things was silence or maun. I don't know what it is called in your language. Just being silent. One whole day he used to be silent. In a week. Used to start from Sunday night till Monday night. He used to just observe silence. What started as a very simple thing turned out to be medically very beneficial for him, because that day of silence gave him a lot of time for introspection, for self-examination, for self-realization, for reading, writing, and even just spending time to connect with his inner voice, inner conscience. The second thing that he did to gain the inner power was fasting. I don't know whether you all have fasted ever in your life. But Gandhi fasted for public cause 33 times. But it was a routine for him to fast in any case. And the third means that he used to gather his inner power was prayer. He was a man of prayers. And as I said, it was all religious prayers that he used to do. And after the prayers, he used to address the gatherings about various subjects. And the fourth means which he used was the spinning wheel. I wanted to bring it with me to display, show you the spinning wheel. But you all must have seen the spinning wheel with which Gandhi energized India to stand up or become fearless and become self-reliant, because all our cotton used to be sent to Manchester, and the cloth used to be made there, and we had to buy the thing which was made in Manchester. So Gandhi said that why don't we make our own cloth? It is very easy. We grow cotton. It's only we must learn, revive spinning and handicrafts and weaving, and let us be self-sufficient. And also he said that whatever you produce, you wear, and whatever you should not have more wants than whatever you can do with your own hands. So these were the inner strengths which Gandhi had. And I also at this point want to tell you that I was born in Gandhiji's ashram or settlement. My father spent 21 years in Gandhiji's ashram. 10 years he spent working with him. So whatever I am telling you today is based on our own experience and what my father had told me and my own understanding of the father of our nation. My father says that when he was 6 years old and Gandhiji was 56 years older than him, that was the age difference. For the entire world, he was the Mahatma. He was a great leader. And for the ashram community like this, he was called as Bapu, the father. But for children like my father, he was neither Bapu, nor the Mahatma, nor the political leader, not anybody very great. For him, he was just their friend. A friend with whom children could talk to, could play with, could swim in the river, could eat together, and in certain cases when there used to be functions in the ashram, he used to ask them, what about the role that I have? Have you kept any role for me? And finally, with whom they could quarrel without qualms. Anybody you can quarrel with is your friend, because friend never misunderstands you. Friend always will defend you. So Gandhiji gave him that kind of love. Therefore, we see that in Gandhiji, there was one very unique quality. He treated human beings as human beings. He gave respect to everybody. And my father further says that in childhood he was like a friend. But when my father became an adolescent and he started working with Gandhi, Gandhi became a very strict taskmaster. He was very, very punctual, firstly, as I have said, and every minute had to be accounted for, and he was very, very meticulous in his work. So he became a very strict taskmaster for my father. But at that age, when my father was 6 years old, Gandhiji used to go for walks every morning and evening. And he used to keep his hands on the shoulders of children like my father. And there used to be a competition between children to become Gandhiji's stick. So once my father told me that he had gone to Latin America, to Ecuador. And there was this lecture like this on peace and compassion and non-violence. And people had come, but they only spoke Spanish. Here, all of you know English, and it is easy for me to tell you about all this. But for my father, he was talking in English, but the interpretation had to be done in Spanish. And there was an elderly gentleman who came for this meeting like this. And father was narrating this incident. And after the meeting, the general etiquette of that country is that people come to shake hands with the speaker to say how well they have liked the speech. So this elderly gentleman came and he held on to my father's hands and he kept saying only 2 words in English. He knew only 2 words in English, and those 2 words were thank you. So he kept on shaking my father's hands and saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And he wouldn't leave my father's hand. So my father called the interpreter to ask what is it that this gentleman wants to say, because he's not leaving the hands. So to that, the interpreter said that you mentioned about the story. So this person is saying that after hearing that, he wanted to experience the vibrations of Gandhi by holding on to his hands. That is the kind of effect that Gandhi has the world over. He is revered as the apostle of peace and non-violence and compassion. And there is so much to learn from his life, because he already has said that my life is my message. In his quest for truth, he defined truth very simply. He said, speak as you think and act as you utter. That is, there should be harmony between what you think, what you speak, and what you do. This harmony, when you bring in your life, that leads you towards truth. And he also realized that truth as he sees is not the only truth. The other person also has truth on his side. And acceptance of that led him to non-violence. So his ideology is truth, non-violence, and purity of means. For truth, he didn't have to make an effort. Like all of us, He got truth from the nectar of life. We are born with truth. Till the fear of society does not cloud our truth. Gandhi was one person who never allowed the fear of society to cloud his truth. At the very young age, when he saw a play about Raja Harishchandra, Satyavadi Harishchandra, he is the epitome of truth from our epics. When Gandhi saw that play, every other child of 8-year-old would have thought that, okay, when I grow up, I'll become like Raja Harishchandra, King Harishchandra. But Gandhi thought, why can't everyone be truthful? It was so simple as that. And he stuck to that. And he remained truthful throughout his life. Non-violence, he found first experience of non-violence was when he confessed to his mistake to his father. He wrote a letter of apology and gave it to his father, expecting punishment. He had committed a mistake. So the father merely tore the letter away, and tears of forgiveness rolled from his eyes. On that day, Mohan, his name, Gandhiji's full name was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Mohandas understood how powerful the power of love is, how powerful forgiveness is, and how connected we all are through our souls. Though we are different, but all are interconnected through our souls. And the communication between the hearts, between the soul, is so strong that it can even melt a stone. That was the first lesson of non-violence that Gandhi got at home. The second lesson he got when he got married to Kasturba at the age of 13. In India at that time, there was early marriages. And when he became a husband after marriage, he started asserting his authority. He said to Kasturba, his wife, that you can't go anywhere without my permission. Both of them were of the same age. Maybe Kasturba was about 6 months older than him. Kasturba said, okay, I agree with you. I will tell you wherever I'm going. But to go to a higher authority than you, I don't need your permission. Because she wanted to go to the temple. That was Gandhi's first exposure to the power of determination and truth. And Gandhi learned the lesson from, second lesson of civil disobedience, of how he termed civil, later on he called it civil disobedience or Savinay Avagya. Being very humble yet doing their own things truthfully. He learned from his wife. And the third lesson he learned in South Africa when he came face to face with racial discrimination. And he was very, very much beaten and insulted, and lot of injustice was meted out on him. But he was very determined not to retaliate back. He was very determined not to take revenge. And at that time, what blossomed in him was the power of being firm on truth. And all this led to his actions, which led to non-violence and later on to Satyagraha. And I don't have now time to talk about Satyagraha too much, but Gandhi has given us, or Gandhi has given the humanity 3 gifts. Satyagraha, about which a lot of people know because it has been used by many people. Second thing was about his service to humanity, or what he called it as constructive program. And the third one, gift that he gave to us was his 11 vows. It's called Ekadash Vrata or 11 vows. And I would like to talk a little about Ekadasha Vrata today because these are the things to cultivate inner power. The power that all of us has needs to be cultivated and to be channeled in the right direction. Principle is very simple. To do unto others what you do unto yourself. Very simple principle. As you expect others to behave like you, you must first behave like that with them. Gandhi had observed his mother taking up great vows or vratas, because in India a lot of people observe these religious observances for their own salvation. But Gandhi realized that those observances give a lot of inner strength to people who observe. So he used it not for his own inner salvation, but to establish as values in the society. So when he set up his ashram, he formulated rules and regulations for the ashram. I don't know what kind of rules and regulations you have in the Tibetan center here, but I'm sure there are certain rules which you have to go by, even in all these places. So Gandhi made a set of 11 observances as rules in the ashram. Whoever was part of the community, ashram community, had to take a vow of all this and observe it. Any vow that is observed throughout the life becomes an observance, and the first one is truth, satya. Second one is ahimsa, non-violence. The third observance is brahmacharya or chastity. The fourth is non-possession or aparigraha. The fifth is non-stealing or asteya. These are all called Mahayamas from the Vedas, from our ancient Hindu texts. These 5 observances have a place in all the religions. In Jainism, they are called the Pancha Mahayamas. They are called Yamas, or the rules and regulations. Pancha Mahayama. And in Buddhism, it is known as Panchashil. These 5 have a place in Christianity also. In fact, all the religions in the world talk about these 5 as their major observances. To those, Gandhi added 7 more. One of the things that he observed in India when he came back from South Africa, that we were still being ruled by the British, and we were very, very, very afraid. So the first lesson that he taught to Indians was to become fearless. He said there is nothing to fear at all. The adversaries can inflict pain on you, suffering on you, but they can't touch your soul. Become absolutely fearless of death. So he taught fearless or abhaya. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the divine attributes, in the 16th chapter, abhaya or fearlessness is the first attribute of a divine being. Because all of us have when I said everybody has goodness, that means all of us have those divine attributes available within us. We just have to bring it out. We just have to cultivate it. So abhaya is one of them. The other was aswada or control of the palate. This is something which was very, very important for the observance of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya literally means being in the constant company of the Supreme Being, or knowing the ultimate truth, the shunyata. So for your spiritual enlightenment, all these things are very, very important. In India at that time, in our country, We were facing with certain social evils. We were faced with all these evils, and one of them was infighting between the religious groups. So he said, we must have equality of religion, or Sarva Dharma Samabhava, which His Holiness is also talking about these days a lot, of bringing ethics in education, of making people understand how we are the same family. We are all the same. We are all united as one. And we are all equal brothers and sisters. So equality of religion. And then he spoke about Swadeshi, which is to use locally home produced goods. Because if we had to come out of the clutches of the alien, the foreign power, we had to be self-sufficient. He spoke about Swadeshi. And bread labor is something which he took from the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. That unless you work with your own hands for your own needs, you are not doing the right thing. You have to work hard to feed yourself. Removal of untouchability is another social evil that we had in India. He worked throughout his life to remove this untouchability. So anybody in the ashram, like my parents and myself, we had to go by these observances and continue doing this. Therefore, whatever we learned from Gandhi, we continue doing this even today. We continue walking on the Gandhian path, on the path shown to humanity by Gandhi. This is the time, it's a challenge to all of us. The last century was equally horrible with 2 world wars and holocausts and all the atrocities that were being unleashed on humanity. But look at what is happening now. Chemical warfare, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons. And we have got all the weapons of mass destruction today at the press of a button. So now is the time to become non-violent, to go think about Gandhi's path of peace, compassion and non-violence. Because if we don't do that, definitely the next thing is our annihilation. There is no way that we can survive if we decide to go at the law of jungle or violence. Violence is the law of jungle, and law of humanity is non-violence. Unless we follow those paths, we are sure to wipe out ourselves. So that is the future that is staring at us. And also Gandhi talked about trusteeship. He said we must use only what we need and not gather things or become materialistic. Whatever we have, we must consider it as extra thing for the society. We must only become trustees of whatever more things that we have, more resources that we have, and use it for the benefit of society. We should only use whatever we need. And about 100 years ago, Gandhi had already warned us that earth has enough for man's need, but not for man's greed. Now think about what he had said 100 years ago. He had already warned us that we are exploiting our planet, we are exploiting our mother nature in a mad race for materialistic things. We have to slow down. We have to make sure that we think about the deprived people. We have to serve others. We have to share things. And we have to set an example by self-suffering and sacrifice to go on the path shown by such great people and also by Gandhi is a very difficult path. But that is the path which is going to lead us towards peace and non-violence. And that is what Gandhi said when he talked about purity of means, that whatever goals you have, your means also should be pure. If you want peace, your means must be non-violent. And all these things Gandhi has already said. My purpose of giving talks about Gandhi is to make people interested in understanding Gandhi, so that they read up about him. They see what all that person could do to change the society at that time. If he could do it then, it is our time to do something to make this place a better place. So, Gandhi talked about societal obligation. He said that each one of us takes so much obligation from our parents, from our society, from our neighbors, from our nation, from our planet. It is our duty or swadharma to pay back that obligation, and the simplest way of giving this societal obligation is to turn your life into a life of sacrifice, of yajna, of serving others with compassion. So, Gandhi's life is a continuous epic of such things where he not only gave us our freedom, but he showed us the path to spiritual realization while working for the society, while serving the society. So we see a lot of qualities in Gandhi, and some of the quality that I would like to I told you that he treated human beings as human beings, and that was something which he respected each and everybody without attaching labels. He did not see whether he was rich or poor, old or young, farmer or a king, nothing. He just respected people as people. The second quality that I would like to share with you, that he had an ever-growing personality. And how? Because he learned from his mistakes. We all make mistakes, that is human nature. But to identify our mistakes, publicly announce it, then do penance for that mistake, and vow, and taking a vow never ever to commit that mistake ever again. That was Gandhi's method. He constantly evolved by learning from his mistakes, and that's how we should remember that even we can evolve, we can become better human beings by constantly learning by our mistakes. And that's for that he had one very nice thing, which is when every night he used to pray, introspect, question himself. One of the questions that has been asked since the past 5,000 years is a very simple question. Very simple question which will lead you to an answer. The question is, who am I? Ko aham. What am I doing on this beautiful planet Earth? Why am I here? For Gandhi, the answer came very easily. At every juncture, he questioned himself. He corrected himself. He did penance, paschatap, for himself and others, and kept walking on the path of enlightenment and spirituality. Therefore, for us, Gandhi stands as a beacon of light. He was killed 69 years ago. But he had said earlier that even from his grave he will remind people that peace and non-violence are positive forces, and only through that humankind can walk towards higher realization. So with this reminder, with this message of Gandhi, I have come to the Tibetan Buddhist Center, and I'm very, very grateful for all of you for having listened to what I have said and having put your thoughts and hearts in understanding Gandhi. For me, my quest is to find Gandhi in each one of you, In each one of you there is Gandhi there. You just have to make an attempt to bring that Gandhi in you. And one of the things that you can do, start with, is to give that respect to others. Treat them like human beings. One of the things that one can do that. And the other thing is to think while you are doing something for yourself, just remember the millions of deprived people who are standing behind you. And the young generation that is going to come after you. Just think of those people. And the third thing is, stand against injustice. Because non-violence does not stand any injustice at all. In non-violence, you stand against injustice, but at the same time, you have full compassion and love for the person who is inflicting pain or injustice. So through self-suffering and sacrifice, the effort is to change the heart of the adversary. And this is the life that Gandhi lived. And now we have crossed our time. It is 9 o'clock. And I'm very thankful to all of you here again, because you have given me the most valuable thing that you have, which is your time. That is the one non-renewable resource that all of us have. So I'm very grateful to all of you for giving me your time and listening to me. Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shubhati, and thank you everybody for attending. So with that, we conclude today's sessions. Before we close today's sessions, do you have any questions for Shubhati? Yeah. Right.
Yes, sir.
What questions? I mean, Gandhi is really left us
79 years.
79 years. So there's a lot of revolution change now in India, which we have seen today. So India is moving toward capitalism. So what was the challenge now in India itself?
One of the challenges that we have now, that we have moved away from the path shown by Gandhiji. That is one of the biggest challenges. And to Gandhi also, a Christian priest asked the same question. That was in 1931. And what he said is even relevant today. The challenge, Gandhi was said, you are asking me what is the biggest challenge. And that Christian priest thought that Gandhi would say poverty or inequality or that we are slaves is the biggest challenge. But Gandhi said the biggest challenge is the callousness of the middle class intellectuals. They are not bothered about anything that is happening to the millions of unfortunate poor people. And that same challenge is there in India even today. And we have moved away, and now we are making a very rapid progress towards absolutely a reverse direction of what Gandhi had said. And we are very unfortunate, but I'm sure the wheel of life is such that it always moves in cycles and it will come back. Ups and downs happen in the history of humanity. But may good sense prevail, and may we follow the path of His Holiness. He is there to show us the path now, as Gandhi showed us to him. And may we all be blessed by His Holiness to take that same path. Thank you. Yes. So it's a cycle of life. So we all are very blessed that He's there amongst us.
So does anyone have any more questions for Mrs. Shobhana?
I have a question.
Okay.
My question is, I want you all to tell me how you liked my talk, whether it was useful to you, whether you have anything to take away from today's talk? How did you like it? What do you have to say to me? I want to learn, because even as Horace Alexander wrote in his book, he said he had spent so many months in Gandhi's ashram, and before he left, Gandhi said, now you must tell us about what you have learned so that we can correct ourselves. So like that, I want to ask you what you all have learned, or do you want to say, so that I can correct myself too.
Maybe I'll just say a little bit. So personally, I've always just know about Gandhi as a very great figure and so forth, but I do not really read too much into a lot of things. But of course, non-violence being one of, and compassion being some of the key points that's always linked to Gandhi. So I think like what you have shared with us today is very enlightening. And at the same goal, I think many of us will feel there is nothing that we did not hear before. But I guess it's always it's always good to have a reminder that to bring us that kindness that's in us. So I hope to be a better person, because I tend to get really edgy at work. And it's only times that I listen to talks like this, secular Dharma, that I come down a little bit. So that's my personal takeaway. Anyone else have anything to share? Feel free. Mrs. Shobana came all the way. So.
I had read Gandhi's biography when I was young.
Oh.
And so from a young person's perspective, it was very beautiful. And I think your talk is very valuable in reminding me that there was such a beautiful thing that I had once read and really forgotten. So I think it was very useful. One thing I'm curious is that Gandhi had the satyagrahas. Is there still such a thing in India? There is?
Yes, they do use satyagraha for changing the hearts of the adversaries or against injustice. Yes, they do still do. But it's all...
There is satyagraha.
But it is being used all over the world also.
I see. I think during Gandhi's time, he had thought that to have a real society of satyagrahas or vow takers to help him. I was wondering if such a society still exists today.
But society Gandhi's ashrams were the training grounds for the satyagrahis. Because firstly they had to develop their inner strength and become very fearless and courageous. So even now, millions of people throughout the world are walking on that path. We may know about them or may not know about them, but they are in their own way trying to change the world. And I'm very happy that you have read the autobiography of Gandhi. Anybody else who has read it here? You have read it? It's a very cheap book. I must say these days books are very expensive, and it is about 80 rupees now. Earlier it was only for 10 rupees, Indian rupees. And it is one of the most remarkable life-changing experience if you read the book. It's available in many languages. And people are reading books to inspire themselves. So it is one of those inspirational books. And I recommend that you please keep one copy of My Experiments with Truth. Because Gandhi's, the name of the autobiography is so beautiful. It is called The Story of My Experiments with Truth. And he comes out as a scientist. And like we are all scientists, we have to experiment with ourselves. And Buddha also says, don't believe everything that you hear. Experiment it on yourself. See, it's the same line. It is the same flow of compassion that is flowing. It's just up to us to take it, have a bath in it, and just get it. Because it's all there. It just has to come out and manifest itself in the service of humanity. So I hope you enjoyed what I have said, and I have really enjoyed your company. And with this, thank you so much. Namaste.
So, Mr. Shobana, on behalf of everyone at Tibetan Buddhist Center, I thank you again for coming all the way here to share with us what you said tonight. So, thank you, Mr. Shobana and Mr. Ravi. So, thank you again. Thank you, everybody.